Aaron Vale moved quietly through the broken corridors of the old orbital habitat. The metal walls groaned as if the structure itself remembered the life it once held. He kept his flashlight low, careful not to draw attention. The place was officially abandoned, but rumors said it was haunted. Aaron did not care about ghosts. He was looking for something else. Strange sounds followed him, soft scratches, quiet whimpers. At first he thought it was rats. Then he saw a faint shimmer in a broken heat vent. Curiosity pushed him closer. Peering inside, he froze. Small eyes reflected the light, glowing with a soft amber color. The creatures were tiny, no bigger than a human child's arm. Their scales were pale and almost transparent. They shivered, huddled together, clearly weak and scared. Dragons? Aaron whispered to himself, though he barely believed the word. His people had told stories of dragons, but none had been seen in centuries. Most believed dragons were extinct. Now here were these fragile, trembling children. They were not monsters. They were afraid, hungry, and very much alive. He knelt slowly, keeping his hands where they could be seen. "Hey, it's okay," he said softly. The creatures flinched but did not run. Hunger made them desperate and curiosity made them cautious. Aaron reached into his pack. He had brought small rations from his work supplies, nutrient packs, dried protein cubes, and water tubes. He placed them near the vent. One of the dragons sniffed, then nibbled. Another followed. Soon they were eating together quietly while Aaron watched, holding his breath. He did this every night. At first he feared being caught. Humans in his society were told that dragons were dangerous and that anyone helping them could be punished. But Aaron did not care. He saw the dragon's need and could not walk away. Each night, he brought more food, a little water, and sometimes small blankets or scraps of warmth he found in the ruins. Slowly the creatures began to trust him. They would peek from the vent when they heard his boots on the metal floors. Aaron began to talk to them. "I'm Aaron," he said one night. "I won't hurt you." The dragons made small chirps, almost like answers. They were learning to recognize his voice. He realized that they were intelligent in their own way. Their eyes followed him. They understood more than he expected. He wondered what kind of lives they had before he found them. Life outside the ruins went on as usual, but Aaron felt a shift in the quiet nights. He noticed subtle changes in the stars, strange flickers he could not explain. He remembered old legends about dragons being connected to the stars, almost as if they were part of a larger cosmic plan. He had always thought it was superstition. Now he was not so sure. Something ancient, something powerful, seemed to be watching. Something that did not want the dragon children to be alone. One night, as he hid near the vent, he heard a soft whimper that was not from the children. The sound came from above, from the main chamber of the habitat. Aaron froze. Someone, or something, was moving in the shadows. He gripped his flashlight and crept forward, careful to stay low. The chamber was empty, but the air felt heavier. His instincts screamed that he was not alone. He returned quickly to the vent. The dragon children were restless, chirping anxiously. They pressed close to him, almost as if they sensed the danger he had felt. Aaron began to wonder how long he could keep this secret. Every night he risked punishment, yet he could not stop. Each feeding session felt more urgent, as if the children's survival depended on him in ways he did not yet understand. The bond between them grew. They began to recognize him at a distance. They would crawl toward him when he arrived. Sometimes one would nuzzle his hand, small and warm despite its scaly skin. He named the smallest one Leary because it reminded him of light. Another, slightly larger, he called Kale. And the third, who had a quiet, almost thoughtful gaze, he called Soren. Giving them names made him feel connected, but it also made the responsibility heavier. These were not just animals. They were lives in his hands, fragile lives that the universe seemed determined to protect. One night, Aaron found a new crack in the vent. Peering inside, he saw movement, faster than before. A fourth child? He froze. The small creature was terrified, hiding from the light. Aaron knelt slowly, extending a hand. "It's okay," he whispered. The child hesitated, then slowly crawled toward him. It was smaller than the others, weaker. Aaron held it gently, feeling its rapid heartbeat. "Don't worry. I'll keep you safe." Something shifted then. The air seemed to hum, almost like electricity. Outside, the stars flickered as if responding. He felt a strange warmth, not from the lights, not from his pack, but from somewhere far away. It was as if the galaxy itself had noticed that the dragon children were no longer alone. Aaron did not understand the meaning, but he felt its weight. He had unknowingly stepped into something much larger than feeding starving creatures. He spent the night with them, keeping them warm, watching for any signs of danger. Dawn came slowly, light spilling across the ruins. Aaron packed up his supplies, careful not to disturb the children. They curled together, finally sleeping in a rare moment of safety. As he left the ruins, he looked back once more. The stars above were bright, twinkling in ways that seemed alive. Aaron did not know it yet, but his simple act of kindness had started a chain of events that could shake entire empires. Somewhere, far across the galaxy, the mother of these children, the star Empress herself, stirred, sensing her young ones were not alone. Aaron only knew that the dragon children were alive, and for now that was enough. Each night he would return, bringing food, warmth, and quiet protection. Every step was a risk, but he did not care. He had chosen this path. And the universe had begun to notice. Aaron Vale soon realized that the dragon children could not survive on ordinary food. The rations he brought were only a temporary solution. The pale creatures needed something richer, something alive in a way human food was not. He watched them carefully, noting which items they ate eagerly and which they ignored. Sometimes they refused everything, curling up and whimpering. Those nights, Aaron stayed longer, holding them close, whispering words he hoped would comfort them. He began experimenting. He mixed small proteins with water and added minerals from the old hydroponic tanks in the ruins. He used whatever tools he could salvage, grinding, blending, and cooking small portions over a tiny hidden burner. At first, the dragons were hesitant. One of them, Leary, sniffed the food, touched it with a claw, and finally ate. The others followed. Each successful meal made Aaron feel a quiet triumph. These were creatures of legend, and he was their lifeline. Every night he brought new things. Sometimes it was scraps of old nutrient gel. Sometimes it was tiny pieces of algae from the storage pods. He even risked leaving the ruins to find edible plants that had survived in abandoned biodomes. It was dangerous. His people had strict rules about wandering alone in abandoned zones, but he did not stop. Every risk was worth keeping the children alive. The dragon children began to trust him more. They no longer flinched when he approached. Leary would crawl to the vent opening and chirp softly when she saw him. Kale would stretch a small wing as if greeting him, and Soren would watch carefully, his amber eyes full of cautious curiosity. Soon they waited for him. As soon as he appeared, they chirped louder, and even nudged him gently, asking for their food. It was the first sign of connection, of recognition. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, chaos stirred in ways Aaron could not yet imagine. The Star Empire had discovered that the heirs of the dragon bloodline, the very children Aaron was protecting, were missing. They were young, vulnerable, and precious. No one knew where they had gone. Reports were conflicting. Some claimed they had been captured. Others whispered of human interference. The Imperial fleets readied for war. Warships moved silently through space, preparing for a confrontation they believed was inevitable. At the center of this storm was the Star Empress herself, Aurelian Teros. Her scales shimmered in the cold light of her throne room. Her eyes were sharp, filled with grief, her heart heavy with loss. The children were hers, the last of her bloodline. And now they were gone. She had ruled with power and wisdom, but this absence stirred something raw inside her. She began a silent hunt, her mind working in icy precision. Every fleet, every scout, every surveillance system turned to the task of finding her young. She would not fail. She could not fail. Back in the ruins, Aaron worked tirelessly. Some nights, the children refused to eat anything. He experimented again, adjusting recipes, combining different nutrients, sometimes feeding them one by one. It was exhausting work, but he found satisfaction in their small victories. A wing stretched, a chirp of delight, a soft touch. They responded in ways no human had expected. One night, as he prepared a mixture of protein gel and algae extract, a thought struck him. These children were not ordinary creatures. They were connected to something much greater. The way the stars seemed to flicker as he approached the vent, the warmth he sometimes felt in the cold metal corridors, it was more than coincidence. The galaxy itself seemed aware that the children were alive. He shivered at the thought. Perhaps they were part of something he could not yet understand. The children sensed the tension in the air. They huddled closer when he arrived, chirping softly. Their small bodies pressed against his legs, seeking comfort. He smiled and knelt, placing the food before them. Leary approached first, then Kale, and finally Soren. The smallest one, whom he had yet to name, crept out from the shadows. He called her Naira, and she hesitated, staring at him with wide, cautious eyes. Slowly, she inched forward and tasted the food. Relief washed over Aaron as she ate, tiny claws clutching at his hand. Days passed, and Aaron became part of their nightly rhythm. He learned their habits, their favorite hiding spots, even the way they communicated with each other. At first it had been feeding. Now it was companionship. The children began to play, stretching their wings, chasing shadows on the walls and making small chirping songs. Aaron laughed quietly, careful not to make too much noise. Their joy was fragile but real. The Empress's hunt grew more relentless. Scout ships combed sectors of space near the old habitat. Communication signals were intercepted. Reports of strange human activity made the Empire suspicious. Yet the children remained hidden and Aaron adapted. He moved supplies carefully, disguised food drops, and used old maintenance tunnels to avoid detection. Each night he became more confident, though he understood the risk he faced. If caught, he would face punishment, maybe death. Still, he could not abandon them. One night, a strange hum passed through the ruins. Aaron paused, listening. The dragon children froze, ears twitching, wings tensing. The air felt charged. He realized that the hunt was closer than he had expected. Somewhere in the sky, perhaps far away but somehow present, the Empress's power reached toward them. It was not anger yet, not fully, but a cold, precise energy that demanded attention. Aaron knew he could not keep them hidden forever. He only hoped that when the time came he could protect them long enough to survive. For now, the children trusted him, and that trust was worth everything. Night after night, he fed them, nurtured them, and watched over them. Each chirp, each soft touch, each flutter of tiny wings reminded him that life, no matter how small or strange, was precious. He did not yet know the full danger approaching. Across the galaxy, empires were preparing, fleets were moving, and a mother's rage was building. But here, in the quiet ruins, Aaron Vale stayed with the children. They waited for him. They trusted him. And he would not fail them. The stars above twinkled in silent witness, and somewhere far away, the Empress's eyes burned with grief and determination. Aaron had no idea that he had become part of a story far greater than himself. A story of survival, of loyalty, and of choices that could shake the galaxy itself. Aaron Vale woke to the distant hum of engines above the ruins. The air vibrated faintly, carrying a warning he could not ignore. Scouts had arrived. The hunters of the Star Empire were here. His heart pounded, but he did not panic. He had prepared for this night in some small way. The dragon children were asleep in their vent, curled together for warmth. He could not leave them behind. He moved quietly, checking each entrance and passage. The metal walls of the habitat groaned under the weight of history. Rusted corridors and broken panels made hiding places for him and for the children. He had covered their food and blankets with old crates and ventilation covers, but he knew the soldiers would search carefully. He could hear their scanners pinging softly from outside, sweeping the ruins for any life signs. The first patrol arrived in the main chamber. Aaron watched from the shadows, his hand gripping a small tool, more for courage than defense. The soldiers were disciplined and silent, their armor reflecting faint lights. They expected to find something, or someone, but not what awaited them. Aaron knew there was no time to flee. If he ran, the children would be discovered. He stepped forward, leaving the shadows, and blocked the corridor leading to their vent. "Stop!" one of the soldiers barked. Aaron raised his hands slowly. He did not speak at first, letting his posture show he meant no harm. The soldiers hesitated. They had been trained to act quickly, to obey without question, yet something about this human made them pause. He was small, unarmed, and alone, but the confidence in his stance and the calm in his eyes caused confusion. From the vent, the dragon children stirred. Their soft chirps and flutters echoed faintly. Aaron knelt slightly, motioning to them to stay quiet. "It's okay," he whispered. "Stay here." The children did not understand the danger, but they sensed his protection. They pressed closer to each other, tiny claws gripping the vent walls. "Human," the patrol leader said, his voice low but firm. "Step aside. The area is under Imperial search." Aaron shook his head. "I cannot. They are here. They are alive. You cannot take them." His voice was steady even as his heart raced. The soldiers exchanged uncertain glances. They had expected obedience, resistance, or trickery, but not this. One of the soldiers stepped forward, scanning the area with a small energy detector. The signal from the children was weak but present. Aaron realized that the Empress herself would soon be tracking it, her power reaching across the stars to find her young. He could not hide forever. He had to stand his ground. The children began to chirp softly, almost in recognition. They did not move toward him, but their small sounds filled the corridor, drawing attention. Aaron stretched a hand toward them protectively. "I'm here," he said. "I will not let anything happen to you." The soldiers paused again. Their orders were clear: Capture the targets alive if possible. But seeing the human shielding creatures so small, so fragile, made them hesitate. The patrol leader frowned, unsure whether to push forward or retreat. Aaron's choice to stay, to risk everything, confused everyone. Even the children were unsure why he did not flee. Hours seemed to pass as the patrol searched. Aaron kept low, moving carefully to cover any movement from the vent. He whispered encouragement to the children, telling them to remain calm. Leary, Naira, Kale, and Soren huddled together, their eyes flicking between him and the soldiers. They did not understand the humans' courage, but they felt it. Far across the galaxy, the star Empress Aurelian Terrorist tracked the faint signals of her missing children. She expected to see the ruins filled with destruction, perhaps their bones, perhaps the results of some human cruelty. But what she sensed instead was life, and a single human standing in the ruins protecting her heirs. She stopped, her claws gripping her throne. Her eyes, cold and sharp, narrowed in disbelief. The Empress descended, her presence sudden and overwhelming. Her arrival sent ripples through the habitat. The soldiers froze, the children whimpered, and Aaron felt the weight of power pressing down on him. She was immense, her scales shimmering like stars, her wings folded but tense. Her voice echoed in the chamber, calm but full of authority. "You are alone," she said, her tone unreadable. "And yet you stand in front of my children." Aaron did not bow. He did not plead. He only looked at her and nodded. "I am here to protect them. Nothing else matters." A silence fell. The soldiers did not move. The children chirped softly, sensing the strange calm. The Empress had expected fear, weakness, surrender, but instead she saw courage. A human, frail and small, yet unyielding, standing as a shield. Her grief, her rage, the cold planning of the hunt, it faltered for the first time in centuries. She stepped closer and Aaron held his position. He did not raise a weapon. He did not speak unnecessarily. He simply remained between the soldiers and the vent, his eyes never leaving hers. The dragon children stirred, sensing her presence but trusting him. "Why do you protect them?" she asked, her voice both thunder and whisper. "Because they are alive," he replied simply. "Because they need someone to be here." Her amber eyes studied him, the intelligence of millennia weighing down on the moment. She saw his determination, his fear, his care. For centuries, no human had ever faced her without flinching. And here was one, small and mortal, who had risked everything for her children. The silence stretched. The soldiers waited, unsure whether to follow orders or witness the impossible. The children curled tighter, their tiny bodies trembling but unafraid. And the Empress, the star Empress of countless worlds, hesitated. She did not yet lower her wings. She did not yet speak the command to take her heirs. But something inside her shifted. Something human, something simple, yet profound. For the first time in her long life she paused. She studied the human who had risked everything, the creature she had thought lost, and the strange, quiet bond that existed between them. Her grief softened slightly, replaced by a sharp curiosity she had not felt in centuries. Aaron kept his position, his resolve unwavering. He did not know what would come next. Perhaps she would strike. Perhaps she would leave. He only knew that he had done what he promised. He had protected the children. And in that act, he had changed the expectations of an empire. The Empress finally stepped back, her wings folding with a new thought forming in her mind. The soldiers lowered their weapons, uncertain but obedient. The children chirped softly, unsure but sensing safety. Aaron exhaled slowly. He had stood his ground. He had faced the Star Empress herself and survived, shielding the dragon children with nothing but courage. And somewhere in the stars, far beyond the ruins, the galaxy watched silently. Change had begun, carried by one small human and 4 dragon children. The story was no longer about loss or fear, it was about trust, courage, and the unexpected strength of life. The ruins were quiet, except for the soft breathing of the dragon children and the low hum of distant engines. Aaron Vale stood still, his eyes on the Star Empress Aurelian Tales, who had finally revealed herself fully in the chamber. Her wings stretched slightly, casting shadows on the broken walls. Her eyes glowed like molten gold, filled with power, grief, and a cautious curiosity. "You have hidden them," she said, her voice calm but sharp, echoing through the metal corridors. "You have fed them. You have kept them alive." Her gaze pierced him. "Why?" Aaron straightened. He did not bow. He did not try to explain more than he needed. "Because they are alive," he said simply. "They are your children. They deserve to live." A ripple of movement passed through the dragon court. Other dragons in the fleet, watching remotely through the Empress's crystal communicators, whispered to each other in low tones. The children of the Star Empress had been missing for too long, and the assumption had been that no human could be trusted. Most expected Aaron to beg for mercy or cower. Instead he stood firm, small and mortal but unafraid. The Empress tested him. First came fear. The air shimmered around her, a heavy presence pressing down on him, making the chamber feel smaller. Energy hummed in the walls, and the metal floors seemed to vibrate under the weight of her power. The dragon children whimpered softly, but they did not move toward the Empress. They trusted him. Aaron swallowed and stood taller. "I am not afraid for myself," he said quietly. "I only ask, will they be safe?" Silence followed. The question was simple, almost childlike, but it carried weight. The Empress had expected defiance, surrender, bargaining, or even deception. She did not expect this. The dragon court, watching from distant chambers and screens, held their breath. Other species across the galaxy who had been tracking the events waited for a signal. The human would be destroyed, they all thought that. Instead the Empress paused. She studied him carefully. There was no deceit in his eyes, no self-interest, no fear-driven obedience. Only concern for the children. Her long life had taught her to weigh every choice carefully, but she realized that she had forgotten something humans seem to know naturally: the power of kindness without reward. Her presence shifted. The weight of centuries of rule pressed down, yet she did not crush him. Instead she allowed herself to remember. She remembered the dragons of old, who had once cared without calculation. They had been proud, wise, and sometimes cruel, but kindness had been a guiding force. Over millennia that memory had faded. Humanity, fragile and small, had reminded her of it in one simple act. The Empress stepped closer. The children chirped softly, unsure but not afraid. Aaron did not step back. He knelt slightly, extending a hand toward the vent where the youngest, Naira, was curled. "They are safe with me," he said. "That is all I ask." The dragon court murmured. Such courage, such clarity of purpose, had rarely been seen in the human species. They were known for ingenuity, for persistence, for survival against impossible odds, but rarely for selfless care. Aaron's choice was quiet, yet it resonated louder than any fleet or weapon could. The Empress raised her wings, a gesture of authority and power, but she did not strike. She tested him again, this time with silence. The room seemed to contract, the shadows stretching long, the hum of the ruins fading. Aaron held his ground. He did not flinch, did not speak unnecessarily, did not beg. He only stayed there, small and mortal, his mind fixed on the safety of the children. Slowly the Empress lowered her wings. The silence broke with the soft sound of the children moving closer to Aaron, chirping and nudging him. He smiled faintly, though he did not relax. The Empress studied the small gestures, the way he had protected, fed, and stayed with them. Everything was true. Everything mattered. "Human," she said finally, her voice softer now but still carrying authority, "you have risked everything for children that are not yours by blood. You have acted without hope of reward. Why?" Aaron looked at her, calm and unwavering. "Because it is right," he said simply. "Because they are alive and someone must care for them. That is enough." The Empress's eyes widened slightly. She had seen many humans, but few had acted like this. In that moment she realized that humanity was judged not by fleets, not by conquests, not by wars. They were judged by choices, by the courage and selflessness of a single life. The dragon court remained still, watching, learning. Even the distant fleets paused in confusion, unsure how to react. A human, one small human, had challenged the expectations of the galaxy and survived, not through strength or weaponry but through courage and kindness. The Empress bent slightly closer, observing the children. She saw their soft scales, their trusting eyes, their tiny wings fluttering with hope. The human had become their guardian, their protector. And in that act, he had changed the course of the Empire's judgment. Her voice softened. "They will be safe," she said. The words carried across the ruins, resonating through the dragon court and the fleets. "Because of you." Aaron exhaled slowly. Relief flooded him, but he did not let his guard down. He remained close to the children, ready to move if needed. For the first time, however, he allowed himself a quiet smile. He had done what he came to do. The children would survive. The Empress stepped back fully now, her presence still immense but less threatening. She studied him one last time, her gaze a mixture of respect, surprise, and something almost like gratitude. "You have reminded me of something I forgot long ago," she said softly. "Kindness without expectation is rare. But it is the most powerful force of all." Aaron nodded. He did not boast. He had not sought recognition. He only wanted the children safe. And in this moment the galaxy seemed to notice. Across distant sectors, other species watching the events felt the weight of what had occurred. This human, this small mortal, had stood before the Star Empress herself. He had acted not out of fear, not for reward, but out of care. And that choice, quiet as it was, had changed the perception of humanity across the galaxy. The dragon children chirped softly, stretching their wings and nudging toward Aaron. He reached out, gathering them close once more. In their small warmth, he felt the affirmation of his actions. The Empress observed, silent and still, her long-held anger and grief giving way to understanding. For the first time in centuries, Aurelian Tires hesitated, not because she feared but because she recognized the strength in what humans could offer. Courage, compassion, and choice mattered more than fleets, more than empires, more than fear. And in that quiet chamber, one human had shown the galaxy a new way to measure power. By heart, by courage, and by the willingness to protect life without hope of reward. Aaron Vale remained there, small and mortal, surrounded by dragon children and watched by a Star Empress. He had not won with weapons, he had not commanded fleets, but he had survived through something older, something wiser, humanity judged by one man's choice. The ruins of the orbital habitat were quiet now. Aaron Vale stood among the dragon children, their small bodies pressed close to him. The Star Empress, Aurelian Tires, observed from a short distance, her immense presence filling the chamber but no longer threatening. The children chirped softly, their eyes bright, and for the first time in many nights they seemed calm. The Empress spoke, her voice carrying authority and warmth. "They are yours no longer, Aaron. They are my heirs. They belong to the Empire." Aaron looked at her, then at the children. Leary chirped softly, nudging his hand. Kale flapped a small wing, and Naira pressed her tiny body against his leg. Soren, the quietest, let out a small, questioning sound. Aaron understood immediately, they would not leave him. They trusted him. They had chosen him. I cannot leave them," he said quietly. "They have stayed with me. They know me. They will not go without me." The Empress regarded him with surprise. In all her centuries she had never seen such loyalty. The Dragon Court and the fleets, watching across the galaxy, waited for her decision. There were whispers and murmurs of doubt. A human refusing to obey the word of the Star Empress seemed impossible. Yet here he stood, calm and unwavering. Aurelian Tires tilted her head, observing the children as they pressed closer to Aaron. She saw their trust, their affection, and realized that it was not simple attachment. It was something deeper, something humans call choice. The young ones had chosen him, and in turn he had chosen to protect them. It was a connection built on care, not command. Finally the Empress spoke. "Then let it be known, a new bond begins. Humans and dragons will not be enemies. They will not be subjects or rulers of each other. They will be guardians together. Aaron Vale, you shall remain with them as their protector and companion." Aaron felt a quiet relief. He did not smile broadly, the weight of responsibility was still heavy, but he allowed himself to exhale. The dragon children chirped happily, flapping tiny wings. They nuzzled him and he gathered them close, careful not to crush their fragile bodies. For them the world had changed, and for him it had changed too. Across the galaxy messages spread quickly. Humans were no longer just small, fragile creatures to the Empire. The story of Aaron Vale, the man who protected the Star Empress's children, traveled from planet to planet, from fleet to fleet. Humans were seen differently now. They were brave, selfless, and capable of courage that even the strongest warriors had rarely shown. In the weeks that followed, Aaron returned home to his small settlement on the Outer Rim. He was no longer unknown. People greeted him with curiosity and respect, unsure how to approach someone who had become a legend across the stars. Children whispered his name, adults nodded in quiet acknowledgement, and he moved among them with the same simple humility he had always known. The dragon children accompanied him. Though small, they were growing stronger, their scales beginning to glimmer under the light of distant suns. Leary chirped and ran alongside him. Kale stretched his tiny wings, Naira pressed close to his side, and Soren followed quietly, always observing. They had survived because of him, but they had also survived because the galaxy had chosen to change. Aaron spent his days teaching the children about life among humans, while also learning from them. He discovered their habits, their ways of thinking, and the strange, gentle intelligence in their amber eyes. They were dragons, yes, but they were also children, curious, playful, and eager to explore. Aaron understood that guardianship was not only protection but also guidance. The Star Empress returned to her fleets, but her presence in the galaxy had shifted. She had seen what humanity could do when guided by courage and care rather than fear. The dragon court and the species who had watched from afar began to reconsider old prejudices. The age of fear, built on war, conquest, and suspicion, began to fade. Small, fragile humans had shown strength that fleets could not match. Aaron often thought of the nights in the ruins, the quiet corridors, the hunger, the fear. He remembered the first time he saw the children, curled together, trembling. And he remembered the weight of responsibility he had carried alone, standing against hunters, standing before the Star Empress herself. Those memories remained, not as burdens, but as proof that courage could change worlds. The dragon children thrived under his care. They learned to trust other humans slowly, watching their new surroundings with wide eyes. When Aaron brought them to open fields, they flapped their wings, exploring skies they had only glimpsed from vents and shadows. They chirped joyfully and Aaron laughed quietly, watching their delight. The bond between human and dragon grew stronger, noticed by all. Other species, curious and cautious, came to see what had changed. They found humans not as weak or fragile, but as partners, allies, and protectors. The lessons of the ruins and of one small human's choice spread farther than any fleet could travel. One evening, Aaron sat with the children on a hill overlooking the settlement. The sun set, casting long shadows, and the light danced across the scales of the dragons. Leary chirped softly, Kale flapped a small wing toward the horizon, and Naira curled against him. Soren, still quiet, blinked slowly as if thinking deeply. Aaron smiled faintly, feeling the weight of what had been achieved. The galaxy had shifted, not through weapons, not through conquest, not through fear. It had shifted through trust, courage, and care. Humanity was no longer unknown, no longer underestimated. One man's choice had shown what small, fragile beings could accomplish when they acted with heart. Stories spread further. Humans and dragons were seen together in distant colonies, small humans walking beside dragons, protecting and learning from one another. Other species began to imagine a different future, one where strength was measured not by fleets or firepower, but by choices, by courage, and by kindness. Aaron watched the children grow day by day. Each moment of trust, each chirp, each small gesture of affection reminded him that life was precious, fragile, and powerful in ways no empire could predict. The Star Empress had returned her children, but she had also given the galaxy a lesson. Fear and war were not the only ways to shape the future. The dragon children refused to leave him behind, and he would not leave them. Together they forged a bond that crossed species, cultures, and worlds. Guardians, companions, and friends, they faced the future not as rulers or subjects but as equals. And as night fell over the settlement, Aaron Vale looked up at the stars. He knew that the galaxy was watching, that change had begun, and that the age of fear had ended. Not with war. Not with force. But with the courage of one human and the trust of 4 small dragon children. The universe was vast and uncertainty remained. But hope had a place now. And Aaron, once unknown, had become the first light in a new era.